Welcome to Meet My Mutual with Sarah and Ava. Pour some wine, light a joint, or don't, and meet my mutual. Hello. Jinx. We just finished our interview with today's guest, Shelly, who is an architect and a model and works in the design space. And she's also part of the Beyhive. So we had a lot to talk about, as you can imagine.
Yes, seriously. She owns like literally everything from Ivy Park. So her own Instagram account is incredible, but she also is a curator for an account called Afriquette. So we just had a great conversation with her, and stick around till the end because there is an added little bonus Beyonce trivia that we had fun doing with her.
Yes. So, play along, pour some wine,
light a joint or don't,
and meet my mutual. Welcome.
Big moves.
So I guess we'll get started with just our basic questions that we ask every guest, which is, first of all, can you introduce yourself? Where are you from? Where are you based? And what do you do?
Sure. So my name is Shelly Chipimo. Those who know me know that I'm born in Zambia, but everybody thinks I'm American because I sound very American. But I have spent most of my life in the U.S., but I have lived across Africa and the Caribbean and Europe because of my mom's job with the UN. So growing up, I was sort of all over the place. But I've been based in Boston for the past 6 years now. And I'm currently en route to getting my architecture license to practice. And I know, big moves. And I'm also doing a project management certificate from Northeastern. So trying to just make some career moves and keep doing me.
Yeah, you are like the definition of booked and busy. Every day you're hustling to some degree.
You always think it's going to end. You're like, all right, once I graduate and I have my degree, I'm all set. And then it's like, no, you actually have to take all these exams and you still have to take courses. So hopefully this time now we'll be all set.
Well, architecture, yeah, it's one of those career paths where you do have a lot of tests that you consistently have to take, right?
Yeah, so you have to do a big 6 once you finish to get your license. And then once you're done with those, it's just a few things to keep up, credit hours. But it's nothing as hectic. I think the biggest lift is once you graduate to when you do those exams it can get pretty intense, but yeah. COVID has helped because I literally have all the time to myself to sit in my apartment and just get that shit done.
I love it. Well, you definitely make it look easy. I feel like every time you post on social, I'm just like, okay, this girl's living her best life. Just beautiful, so fashionable, amazing. So
your hair is always on point and done.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I did it yesterday only because tomorrow's my birthday and I was like, I should look presentable, but it's been a struggle.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
That's so exciting.
A nice new birthday activity for me.
Wait, are you a Capricorn?
Yes.
That explains a lot.
Oh my goodness.
No Capricorn.
She's got work ethic. That's why.
That makes sense.
I'm honored. I'll thank my star sign for that.
My mother is a Capricorn. I understand you.
Capricorn gang.
I love it. Well, can you tell us a little bit about that journey with social? Because I certainly enjoy following you and seeing all of your outfits and everything, and how you mix fashion with your work. And I don't know, you just have a lot of awesome passions and you make it look so pretty and easy online. So can you just tell us about what your first platform was and a little bit about how you use your platform?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm flattered. I definitely think I started off posting being this is just going to be a hodgepodge of whatever. And if I lose followers, so be it. But I became well known for my Instagram, just inadvertently. But my first ever platform was not Instagram. It was Hive. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was a thing back when I was in middle school that was kind of like a precursor to Facebook. It was basically just this web page where you could go and like post like gifts or not gifts. I don't know what the terminology was back
Like
then, but
Tumblr?
like kind of. And like you could just like post stuff on people's walls and just like nonsensical stuff. I made some fake profile just so I could feel like I was part of the loop. But yeah, I once that sort of died down, I think I abandoned, you know, my High Five account and I shifted to like Instagram and Facebook. Um, Apps that I really just needed because I had moved around so much. And so that was really my only way of keeping in touch with like family and friends who I wouldn't otherwise see.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting because I think my exposure to travel and my background in architecture gave me a certain aesthetic, especially on Instagram, that isn't like commonly associated with someone who looks like me, a Black
Mhm.
woman. And so consistently sharing those parts of my life just helped me build up a rapport, like a good rapport, I guess, that
Mhm.
kind of it is what it is today. But at the time, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of just like, I like to post pictures. Facebook is annoying, so I'm just gonna move all my content over.
Plus, it helps that you own like every piece from Ivy Park.
Yeah.
As I sit here in Ivy Park again, I just felt like it would give me good energy. I was like,
Yes.
I'm gonna be nervous.
We're
It's
in Beehive territory right now.
That was Ava and I's first concert together was Beyonce.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I actually went to a Beyonce concert alone. My friends and family thought I was crazy because it was in Foxborough, which is huge and it's far away. But I was like, I trust the Beehive. I will meet some cool people if
Hold
I'm
on.
going to
Were we at
go.
the
Same
same
one.
concert?
When was
On
it?
the Run too?
Which
When
one
did
did we
we
go
go?
to?
No,
That was this.
we
We
saw
saw the
Lemonade.
formation. No, we saw formation.
Oh.
Yeah, is that
Yeah.
yeah, that's Lemonade. Yeah. Okay. I remember that's
Okay,
what you
so no, it was not the same concert. It was on the
Okay.
Run too. But
Oh, so you were like younger,
I went by
risky.
myself and I was like, well, it is what it is. I actually met two cool people. They took some pictures for me. And then they found me on IG like a few days later when I posted, I guess because I geotagged it. And yeah, we still follow each other to this day and like I keep in touch with them. Let me tell you, the Hive are my like I follow friends and I follow family, but the Hive are the people who are in my DMs like all the time. They're
That's
really
great.
great.
I love that. I love a
Yeah.
community.
It really is. I'm like, I can network professionally, but let me tell you about the Hive.
So your bio says that you're a future architect, model, designer. Which would you say, like, which passion would you say came first? And is like, how did those passions intersect, would you say?
So this one was kind of like a chicken and the egg because they all sort of coalesced at an opportune time in college. And I actually did a visual story called Coalescence, which was like a nod to that phenomenon where I felt like my modeling and architecture interests were taking off at similar paces. Ava and I like we met each other when we shot for the Avenue, which was like Northeastern's fashion magazine, and like that was just because I friends with some friends who put us together, and then I had sort of found my feet in architecture, and like I was feeling a lot more confident in my work, and so. This passion project wasn't my best work, but it basically was centered on like editorial photographs, which were as much about framing a person in space, or myself in this case, by taking advantage of like daylight and ambient light. And it was also about conveying a certain aesthetic about me and sort of positioning architecture in a backdrop in an interesting way, just because that is an important part of who I am. So ultimately, I mean, the project just showcased how I chose to frame myself and coalesce with like intuitively how I frame various buildings, and just I was sort of experimenting with all these ideas in my head as a way to, kind of unite the two things, architecture, fashion.
Yeah, because your Instagram is it's very fashion focused, but the background's always also super interesting. Like you always have some sort of structure, whether it's natural or man-made. Like That's
Yeah.
really beautiful. So you do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love it.
There are definitely a lot of interesting places, and they somehow manifest themselves in the photo. Sometimes how I envision myself in the space isn't like, sometimes I'll take a picture of the place and I'll be like, I don't need to be in this shot. You know, sometimes I want to do everything at once. I want to be in the shot and I want the architecture to speak, but sometimes I do try to take steps back to just be like, let's appreciate this for what it is.
Yeah. And at what point, or like how were you able to turn these passions of yours and into what has now become your career?
Honestly, I'd say it was just seizing the moment or opportunity at the right time and place. I mean, as I said, I was just doing me for a lot of things. But once I started, like, I'm not a professional model. I'm obsessed with Ivy Park. I'm obsessed with Beyonce. I will make whatever it is I'm doing look like somebody's paying me to do it. It's just how I am. But I will say, like, once I got more into that, I didn't know that I was paving the way for other like young Black women who might have similar interests as me, and who like see me doing stuff. I'm like, yeah, you're perfectly capable of doing all of this by yourself. But I also think once I had some work experience under my belt, being in a supportive environment helped me find my element. And at the end of the day, I'm able to show that like I'm at all these various tables because I'm qualified, not just because I'm Black. And so, yeah, you just have to believe in yourself and find the right people to support you, whether it's your mom or a mentor. Because yeah, when the stars align, like you'll be unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, I love that you are inspiring a whole, like, I guess, new generation of women architects and Black women architects. So did you have any that you were able to look up to yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have plenty for various reasons. I mean, a big part of what I strive to do is really just change the narrative around the continent of Africa, because I think one thing that's frustrating is like in the US, you're like called African American or Black. There's no like African. I'm like, that kind of came first. And so I try to always bring that perspective back and like educate people here and say, like, you know, it's not a country. It's a continent. It's diverse, and so
it's a huge continent, too,
right? It's massive, and people are always like, "Oh, you're from Zambia." Like, where is that? It's so like, it's so big. You don't even know. Like,
yeah, I was about to say, like, would you know if I told you? Probably not.
So somebody in college asked my brother one time, like, which part of Massachusetts Zambia was in. You know, I mean, like, it's really. I've gotten everything from like. Is that in Africa? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, okay, that's good to know. But I think some of my favorite people from that sphere in the diaspora is Mami Tal. I mean, not a lot of people probably know her by name, but she's a Senegalese architect, and her work fuses traditional like Senegalese practices with a futuristic aesthetic. And you know, she's on Instagram, but yeah, she's exhibiting the beauty of different African cities on a global level and just showing that there's so much more to Africa besides huts. Like we have our own vernacular architecture and it varies by region. And that's something that I love that she does in her work. It's, you know, it's not trying to, it's very understated, but I think it's very powerful. And I'm hoping that, you know, as she grows and her business grows, that it will broadcast to the much larger audiences.
Yeah. I remember you took a trip. I'm not sure where you went, but I believe it was somewhere in Africa. I'm assuming Zambia. And you were posting like the most beautiful, just like interior decorating. I don't know if that was your home that you grew up in or that was, yeah.
Probably not. I mean, I think I know what you're talking about. There are a couple of galleries and stuff that I visited when I was home because it's really like it's a different pace of life. And I think once you're there, it's really by word of mouth that you find out about these places. And so I'm like, why aren't these advertised? Why aren't these on a website? Like, why does nobody know about this? Because this is awesome and there's so much culture there, and more people should know about this, especially more people like in Zambia themselves. So yeah, I mean, I'm just like, well, nobody's doing it. I'm gonna take the liberty here.
Yeah,
that's awesome. It'll be me then. That, like, yeah, right. Within that realm, like, is there a particular particular architectural style that you like really love?
As
Just personally.
I'm a very big traveler. There are many types of vernacular architecture that have really grown on me, and that's just traditional styles of building specific to a region or culture. And I think that those are the things that everyone loves to take pictures of when they travel to Bali or Morocco. And I just think the more time I spend in the West, the more I appreciate having architecture that's grounded in a culture, because I think we lose a lot of that. And, every city starts to look like New York City because we're like, oh, we want the international style and we want to just towers and glass everywhere. But I think vernacular architecture gives us reason to travel and want to immerse ourselves in different experiences and environments. And so that's really grown on me as I've like developed more as an architect myself. But I mean, I also do love modern architecture. I'd love textures and colors still to like find their way into it. But yeah, those are obviously more of the types of buildings I design. So, and I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So going off of that, what would you say is your favorite part of the design process?
Well, as you know, well, Ava, because you and I follow each other, that I recently had one of my first projects like built
Yes, it
here
was
in
beautiful.
Boston. And so that was like a big highlight for me. And I'm probably only going to say this once, that the end result is the best part. There's definitely a lot of joy in between, but just seeing it like finally get built was really exciting, because depending on where you work, the type of firm, you're not always guaranteed to see the fruits of your labor. So you might work on one part or move on to something else, or you could leave a company before a project gets finished. But just the fact that, I had friends who lived in that building, and the client was a frequent partner of ours in the office. It was just nice to like see them enjoying the space and like happy with the work. And that was like really awesome for me.
Yeah, that was so exciting. I was so happy for you.
Didn't think it would happen, but we're here.
We're here.
It's incredible. Like, I can't imagine seeing something that you created. Like, oh, that would be so cool.
It's very weird. And it's kind of nice because now I'm like throwing out all the stuff I did in school. I'm like, forget conceptual work. Look at this. I have something that's real.
Yeah. My grandfather, he is long passed away, but he was an architect for a while. And he did, where they had the World's Fair in New York? Yeah, he did weird buildings. But I remember every time growing up, like driving by, my mom would be like, that was designed. Like, it's cool just to be like,
exactly.
That when made. And like,
I think it just makes it that much more real, because people always ask me like, oh, what do you do? What type of architecture do you do? And then it's hard not to get into specifics, or I kind of say something and they're like, okay. But when you can take them to a project or reference something, they're like, oh, like, okay, this is nice,
Yeah, it makes it real. How do you incorporate parts of yourself and your own identity into your work? Like, can you? Because you are working with clients, right? So I don't know how much freedom you have.
Well, it depends. I mean, I ask myself like what I'm bringing to the table as a member of the design team, and how my skills can best complement the client. And depending on if the project is small, I don't do too much like residential, like single family homes, more commercial work. But there are a lot more stakeholders involved in that. So it's not so much about like you as an individual. It's just more about you as a team. And at the end of the day, the client is paying you to help you realize their vision. And so sometimes they know what it is, and other times they just have trouble articulating it. So it becomes a different discussion of like, how do you translate vision into something that gets built? And the best advice is just, show up with some options. And in generating those options, that's where I sort of like position myself. I'm like, okay, what can I pull from my experience, or, things that will just like innovate the space in a way that like still matches the client's intent.
Right.
And that's sort of how I try and incorporate, aspects of myself, whether it just means that I put Pinterest to the side and don't, do the knee-jerk reaction of like, let me find inspo, and just sort of dig a little deeper and like, okay, what have I done that has been able to translate well for X or Y reason? That's where I'd like try and at least make Shelly's signature, whatever it is, like come out a little bit. And then I let the client choose, you know, if it's something that they want. So it's not like I feel offended if, you know, that's not what they want.
Well, we also see that you're a curator for an account called Afriquette. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, that's correct.
So can you just tell us a little bit about that and how did you get started with it?
Sure. So Afriquette is an online journal that celebrates African in the continent as well as in the diaspora who create and do all these interesting things that traditionally don't get a voice at the forefront of popular media. And so I followed the page for quite a few years before I was headhunted by the founder, Dara Oke. And I saw their page and I was just in awe that I had found a community of global citizens who are Africans who just like have very similar life stories to me. And they were doing all these cool things. And I was featured a couple of times, but I never thought, you know, it would result in me being asked to like manage their social feeds. And so I've taken over for the past 3 years and sort of grown their following by, I don't know, probably like 30,000 followers.
Damn.
Last time. Just like really posting consistently and trying to find more stories that have like personal touches to them. Because it's so easy to just repost content in between our custom content that we create. But I think the nicer part is that I do try and find people who are doing amazing work that just doesn't get seen because the feed is just so oversaturated with all your favorite influencers and the household names. So yeah, that's sort of what I've been doing for Afriquette since, is just really trying to like amplify all those like unheard voices. And we're really sort of trying to move more into storytelling and getting the Black, the African, the minority voice like heard, because it's been very quiet for a while and there's so much interesting stuff happening that just hasn't been seen.
Yeah, well, you're definitely the woman for the job.
Yeah. And it's beautifully curated.
I feel much more confident in the role. I think when I first started, I was like asking for permission every 2 seconds, like, oh, is it okay for me to post this?
Yeah.
But now, like seeing the response, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't
I sort of know what I'm doing.
Yeah, they wouldn't have hired you if they didn't have confidence in you. So
at this point, like, you know what works and what doesn't. Like, you can trust yourself in that. Well, kind of going off of that, in our call last week, you briefly touched a little bit on the struggles of being a Black woman architect. And we know it's like a very loaded question, but can you just expand upon that? Like, what sort of assumptions have you had to face in the industry for people who might not know that that's even a thing?
Right. So I think because there's so few Black women who are in architecture, for me, anytime you're involved in a project or in an event, people don't really know what to expect. And I mean, Black people make up 2% of licensed architects in the US. Wow. And just recently, we hit the 500 milestone for licensed Black women. So there's still a long way to go, but we're getting there.
As in 500 people?
Yes, 500, wow. The size of my high school. Yeah, we're unicorns in this industry. If you're lucky to see me, you better hold on to me. You know, it's pretty low. Yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, people don't really know what to expect when they encounter you in this professional setting, because I mean, frankly, you may be the first Black architect they've ever seen, and they don't know if you're the help. They don't know if you're an intern. They don't know if you're visiting. They're really just wondering like, what is going on? But it gives me so much satisfaction to just exceed these people's expectations and move on to the next thing like it was nothing. Because I think people see, oh, they're Black, and they just automatically assume things, or they lower the bar, when in reality, you're qualified to be there just like everybody else, you know?
Mm-hmm. Of course. If you were a white man walking into the room, they wouldn't
no question
what you were doing there. Yeah.
Right. I've definitely been asked, like, oh, like, are you an intern here when I walk into a meeting and I'm setting up? But like, I've been communicating with you on email
Oh my,
for the past
I
few
can't.
weeks. But like now they put a face to the name. They're like, oh, you're Shelly. Oh, got it, got it. I'm
Mm.
like,
I
okay.
know. I always find it like, what would it be like if everyone had a picture like in their email? Like just how, I mean, but also don't you think that they would look you up on LinkedIn or something?
You would
Yeah,
think, but it's just really interesting because I'm imagining that my colleagues don't get asked the same questions, you know?
Mm.
Um,
probably not. I just can't even comprehend that thinking that you're like, you must not belong. Like that's someone's
right.
first thought
But if
before
you
you even know somebody. Like what the hell?
right. I mean, as I said, I mean, I've been mostly in supportive work environments, so that's not really
Great.
something that affects my day to day. But occasionally, when there are newer clients, you know, it's just like you occasionally get the anomaly who's kind of
Oh,
like,
of course.
what is she doing here?
Yeah.
The other stereotype that's like a big one is the stereotype of the angry Black woman. I mean, it's no secret that every workplace has conflicts, but you know how you handle those conflicts, especially as a Black woman, can make or break you.
Mm.
But as Beyonce says, always stay gracious. Best revenge is your paper. So I handle
Great.
that with grace and composure, and nobody will ruffle my feathers for
And a
anything.
smile on your face, I'm sure, when they see
Exactly.
your work. Damn.
Exactly.
Well, so I guess going off of that, in what ways does being a Black woman in architecture set your work apart from others, or I guess enhance your experience?
well, I think, well, to be reflective, I think because of all that transpired in 2020, especially around the Black Lives Matter movement, it really pulled a curtain back on the issues of race disparity in architecture.
Mm.
And I mean, one standout for me was companies recognizing that there's value that minorities bring to the design that should not just be limited to support roles. You know, if companies want more equity in the workplace and Black people are in a better position to advocate for themselves because we've been given the floor essentially, we need to be having discussions about how to diversify the leadership pool because that's where all the decisions get made and it's at the high level. You know, it's not in the support roles. So we need diversity and perspective at a higher level. And I think as a Black woman, I see a lot more opportunities for growth in the industry than I did a year ago. And I mean, it's sad that tragic events had to be the catalyst for so many conversations that needed to be had. But I'm hoping that minorities rise to the occasion now that that door has been opened a little bit
Mhm.
for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just reflecting on like my own industry, like working in fashion and stuff, and it's so true that the interns and everyone on the lower totem pole or whatever are usually minorities, and all the people at the top are like the older white men,
Yeah.
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
just insane that they're it's sorry, just
It's
in every
really,
industry.
but it's systemic, you know. That you know that is where the power is, but you can I forget what the term is called, but basically you can appease other people by inventing roles at a lower level and
Mm.
Yes.
creating other committees and other things for, you know, who knows what. But at the end of the day, that's just to make them happy and keep them over there in the corner while the important things are separate and, you know, they don't get to have a say in those things.
Mm.
So that's, I mean, that's something that I think will change now because again, like companies are having these discussions.
Yeah.
I had to lead one of those uncomfortable discussions.
Oh, really?
And you know, yeah. So
Do you
it was
mind telling us about that? If not, it's
sure.
totally
No,
fine.
I have no problem. We're talking about it now. So basically, after you know, the George Floyd protests sort of spiraled into a global outcry.
Mhm.
My company had a race talk, a mandatory like race talk for everybody, and they pit us for some volunteers to lead the discussion, and I was kind of like, okay, like that could be cool. I'm sure others will volunteer. I'm not. I
Mhm.
don't mind throwing my name out there. I was also one of three Black employees at the company, so I was kind of like, well,
Out of
if
how
you know,
many, if I can ask? Like how many
about
employees?
60 people.
Wow.
Okay.
at the time. Yeah. Which it sounds bad, but honestly, that's been the most. I'm usually the only Black employee where I am.
Right.
So yeah, it's 3 is a luxury at this point.
The bar is so fucking low.
It is really, if I see another one, I'm like, oh my God, thank you. And so, yeah, I ended up being, I and one other person ended up volunteering, and it turns out we were the only people who had volunteered because everybody else was kind of just like, this is not for me. I will listen, but I am not about to. They didn't feel like it was their place, but it's also not our place as Black
Right.
people to have to be victims of a system that discriminates against us.
Were you getting paid to do this, or this was strictly
No.
wow?
So this was I think as an office though we had agreed that it's something that needed to happen.
Yeah.
And there were positive things that came out of it. It was, again, as I said, it was a volunteered position, so it's not like I felt like I needed to be compensated at the time, because it spurred out of a necessity, and we sort of all agreed, yes, we do want this to happen. How do we facilitate that? I did not expect to have to be one of the main leaders in the conversation. As I said, I'm young. There were a lot of things that were new to me and there was a lot of pressure, but I have supported people who I talked to and sort of prepped me for what I needed to say. But we had a lot of important discussions about what is systemic racism, and what role do white people play in that? That's an important truth to just acknowledge, that you, by virtue of being white, are benefiting from this system. Even though you may say, I'm not racist, I contribute to Black owned companies and I have Black friends, but it's more than just the surface level of that. And so breaking down some of those unknowns for people, and just really diving into actionable items and ways in which the company itself can help to actively dismantle systemic racism, whether that's bringing on board more students of color in college who a big way that you get your foot in the door is through internships. But if you're being barred from those internships, how do you apply? How do you get your foot in the door? So we talked a little bit about mentorship is another issue that people of color face in the architecture industry. There are no mentors. I want somebody who can empathize with the struggles I have to go through. I don't want you, a straight white male. You don't know the barriers that I have to go through to get to a leadership position. So I just think finding more mentors who can coach you through some of those career struggles and help you pivot around them and network and get into the places you need to be to have discussions with people, because you will not get very far just by yourself.
Right.
So we talked about mentorship and providing students of color more opportunities to intern in an office, and if that progresses into a full-time job, great, but at least to give them the chance. And then we also talked about office culture and some of the ways that, microaggressions are a thing everywhere, and just that there's policy for sexual assault, but there's no policy for microaggressions. Who do you go to? What do you do if it's a small office and HR is the same person who says something to you? What do you do? So really just clean slate, let's revisit where we are as a company, as people, and how do we create actionable items that will improve the lives of Black people, of minorities, Yeah.
Now, were most of the people in these meetings pretty open and wanting to listen and learn, or did you get some people that were just too uncomfortable with it, or maybe didn't even believe in systemic problems?
So it was over Zoom. So
okay,
that was, I think it was good and bad that it was over Zoom. I don't know that I was comfortable, physically being in the room, but it helped to have a bit of distance.
Totally.
The office itself was very, very receptive to all of this. Majority white, but we had done a donation matching campaign to donate to organizations helping to bail out protesters. And I think 99% of the office had donated and the company matched. So people wanted to do something, just didn't know how. And I think the conversation went a lot better than I thought it would go.
Good.
And they had been productive things that happened afterwards. They set up a Jedi Justice, Equality, Diversity, Inclusion Committee. And that had many factions to deal with: mentorship, onboarding, the HR and work culture, and have people like, this is not we have this discussion once a year and we've solved racism. This is like an ongoing thing. And if you were employed there, like, this is who the company is and this is what we strive to do. And so ever since that discussion, there have been ongoing things where people are, they're continuing on with the work that we had discussed in the initial meeting. And I think that speaks volumes to the type of people who work there, because I was expecting it to be a one and done kind of thing. And it's really like the momentum has kept going.
That's great. So wait, I'm sorry. Did I misunderstand you? Did you leave that company?
Yes. So I left, and I'm now pursuing the project management degree at Northeastern.
Hey, there you go.
But don't worry, I'll be back in the workforce soon.
So I guess, well, thank you for sharing that. That's very insightful. And I think a lot of people listening and out there can relate to not having to, but experiencing that culture and like that, what's the word? The result of everything that happened this summer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a goddamn shame.
We turned lemons into lemonade.
Well,
that's right.
Transitions perfectly into our next
Beyonce plug.
Our next topic, which is Beyonce. So obviously, it's no secret to your followers and now our listeners that you are a major Beyonce fan and part of the Beyhive. So when did that begin? Like, when did your love for her begin? And to quote her, should we all bow down?
Yes, without question. because So my love for Beyonce began when she dropped her self-titled visual album. I was sitting in my dorm freshman year of college, and I was like, let me just catch up on life quickly before going to bed. And all of a sudden, I just saw like the album drop, and I'm like, I am not sleeping tonight. And so I sat up the whole night, paid for all of it, and watched it once through. And I was like, I pledge allegiance to this woman. Like, that was it for me. It was the unexpected nature. It was the quality. It was the tunes. I was like, this woman. And nobody knew.
She changed the game.
She really did. She said, world stop. And she has not told us to carry on yet. So we're just sitting here waiting. But that was the day. It was that album for me.
I think I relate.
I remember that.
I think Sarah and I were studying abroad in Greece that semester, and I think we were there because I remember being like in my room, and I remember having that exact same like jaw on the ground. Like, is anyone else seeing this shit? Like,
absolutely. I think it was the end of a long semester, and it was kind of just like, thank you. This is what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Such a good
that was the day.
Well, as you're saying, Beyonce is she's known for her stunning visual albums and now like Black storytelling. Does her like visual storytelling even ever inspire your process at all? Like, how could we all be a little bit more like Beyonce?
Absolutely. I mean, that if B takes on a project, she's never going to skimp on quality. It is going to be the best thing with the best budget and the best production with the most quality people. That you're going to get your money's worth, which is also why I have no problem paying for anything that she does, because I'm like, it is going to be quality. She does her research. And she knows her audience. She isn't making art or albums to people please or to chart. She doesn't care if it's palatable for her white audience. She loves white people, but like, there are certain white people who are like, this isn't the Beyonce that I knew. Like, Piers Morgan went on some tangent calling her out for having an opinion on politics. I'm like, okay, Beyonce is the mother of Black children living in America as a Black woman. I think she is allowed to say her
In
piece.
business, yeah.
Yeah. Also, like, not
Um,
everything is for your consumption.
No, and exactly. She's not doing it to chart. She doesn't need the money. She's doing it because it's her craft, and now she's in a place where she can just sort of branch out and experiment because she has nothing to lose.
Literally.
And so I think that definitely inspires me. It's like come in with a solid work ethic, and like when people hear your name, they should know like no questions, like you will deliver.
Yes.
Yeah, I just love that about her. And in response to your question about how we could all be a little bit more like her, we can start by making moves in silence, because everybody knows Queen Bee, when she goes silent, something good is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
I
true.
just think it's interesting that she's like one of the wealthiest people in the world, but she knows how to sort of live peacefully in the background. Meanwhile, the rest of us are out here trying to flash our Ivy Park. And, I'm going to roast myself here a little bit. But we're out here trying to make all this noise without much substance being there. And I think, if anything, we can learn from her that it's okay to take some time and reprioritize
And like
and
hone your craft and
exactly and focus. And it's okay to fall. She's not perfect, but she stumbles and falls, but she's where she is now, and she's taken lessons, and she's made albums about it, and she's earned more money. And so your actions speak louder than words, so we all take a little bit of notes from Beyonce.
Well said. Well, I guess we're going to end, though, this is a surprise to you, on some Beyonce trivia questions. We're going to test your Beyhive knowledge.
Oh my gosh.
They're super simple. I'll be honest, I did not fact check these very well, so...
If this does not go well, this is off the record.
That's fine. All right, we'll start with an easy one. What was Beyonce's first movie that she starred in?
Oh, that's a great question. It wasn't Gold Member. Awesome.
Correct. Yes. And she had that awesome costume.
Yeah. Foxy Cleopatra.
All right, next is, what is Beyonce's middle name?
Giselle.
Yes, good job.
Oh goodness. Mood Forever will ensure nobody ever forgets that she is Beyonce Giselle Knowles Carter.
Exactly. All right, this is, I think, the toughest one. How many Grammy nominations does she currently have?
Doesn't she have 9?
No, she got 79.
Nominations.
Yeah, nominations.
Wait, is that true? That's a lot. Fact check. Hold on.
No, she has 9 nominations for this year.
No. Total.
Oh, total? I have a lot. The most. I'm just gonna say the most because I did see a headline saying that Beyonce has the most Grammy nominations.
That's correct. And the answer is 79.
79.
She's the most nominated female artist ever.
But the Grammys snub her. This is why So
imagine if they didn't snub her.
She will, though. I'm confident she will surpass 100, which is crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow, that's his volumes. She will. Jay-Z can take a back seat.
He's been in the backseat.
He has, but he produces all her music, so we have no choice. But
talk about moving in silent.
As she drags him, he
seriously, I will never understand, but yeah, that is her person.
Yeah, that's her man, and we gotta accept it.
We have to stand. We stand for Blue Ivy winning her first Grammy, though.
Oh my God.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right.
All right, last one. You got this one. I'm confident. What's the name of the girl group she was in before Destiny's Child? It's Shelly, in a song.
You know this.
This.
Alexa. Help. I know this?
You're going to hit yourself.
Yeah,
Girls Time.
Oh my God. Rapping Girls Time. Oh my God. You guys, that was way before I even knew what Beyonce was.
I know.
You did
I
great.
told you specifically the day that I pledged allegiance. All trivia questions should have been from then on. What is this?
I'll give you like a 60% score.
Okay.
You're still,
Right,
it's okay.
fine.
You're
I think
still her
you
number
need
one.
to quiz me. You need to quiz me on some Ivy Park next time.
All right.
That I will ace 100%.
You got it. Well, thank you so much. Our last bit is just for you to plug yourself. Where can our listeners find you? And do you have any projects coming up that we should be aware of?
So I am on Instagram at Shelly Chipimo. I'm also on TikTok, but I don't know if I want to announce my account yet. I haven't posted on TikTok in 2 weeks, and I'm trying to be better. But my plug, I have a publication coming out in the next week or two for the Boston Society of Landscape Architects, their annual publication called Field Book, where I shared my lived experiences as a rising voice in the design profession. And it's my first, like professional publication.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, so I'm excited to like see it come to fruition.
Is it going to be like a printed copy or online?
Yes. So it's
You
printed
gotta
and
frame that shit.
Frame that shit.
We'll definitely do
That's
so.
awesome.
It's exciting. It's 190 pages long. So
it's
their biggest volume to date.
Wow. You frame it. You need to create that Beyonce picture of her with the Mona Lisa.
Say no more. Can I commission you?
Yeah.
I need photography assistants and I need Sarah's graphics, please. You're hired. Okay.
Post-COVID, we'll do it.
Thank you. And of course, I'm excited for everybody to listen to this podcast. 90% Beyonce, 10% architecture.
Listen,
okay.
That's a good ratio.
It really is. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, we learned so much and that was so much fun. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Meet My Mutual. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and be sure to tell your friends about us. We welcome you to connect with us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Meet My Mutual. Thank you so much for the support. We'll see you next time on Meet My Mutual.